Throughout the seasons of BFDI, there have been many eliminations, and many of those eliminations have turned out to have very close vote totals. In this video, I will be looking at each one of these vote wars, and giving my take on why the votes were so close in the episodes in question. The first ever example of a vote war was all the way back in BFDI 22 in 2011, where Rocky and Flower had a very tight matchup. Tight enough that their liquids had to be separated into separate containers so anyone could even tell. Luckily they were not tied, and to this day there is yet to be a tied elimination, but they were only separated by 7 votes, with Flower getting 312 votes, while Rocky had 319. Flower is easy to explain. This is Season 1 Flower we're talking about. She really wasn't popular. It is very likely the only reason she didn't lose is because she had just come back, while Rocky had been here the whole time. For Rocky, on the other hand, people probably just thought the vomit gag had gotten old and that he had overstayed his welcome. BFDIA 5's war between Match and Golf Ball is next. They had a 20 vote difference between them, with Match getting 426 dislikes, while Golf Ball had 406. Golf Ball was most likely voted so heavily due to her bossiness and for killing Pencil after she questioned GB's authority. On the other hand, I think the reason Match ended up leaving the game is because she was kind of seen as being annoying due to her Valley Girl accent and mannerisms, very likely not helped by her calling Tennis Ball lazy. Since we're going by timeline order instead of release order, BFDIA 8 is the next episode, and it saw a vote war between Pencil and Fiery. Pencil received 13,530 dislikes, and Fiery got 14,028 dislikes, a difference of 498, which is pretty small given the far larger vote counts for post-hiatus BFDIA. The reason I think Fiery got out is because him and Gelatin joined FreeSmart in the last episode with the specific intent to steal Ruby's Lite and sabotage them while they were at it. Pencil, meanwhile, was the figurehead, other side, of the intra-team rivalry, that being the original FreeSmarters, not to mention she was, and still is to an extent, perceived as a mean character based largely on BFB1. Whether that's justified or not is another story, though I personally don't think so. BFDIA 14 is the first vote war that has more than 2 contestants in it. This time there are 4, namely Nickel, Fries, Bommy, and Golf Ball. There was an 829 vote difference between the lowest and highest voted combatants in this vote war. This sees the beginning of a trend where every one of the contestants in the vote war have a good deal of popularity. As such, there doesn't really seem to be a clear answer as to why each contestant got so many dislikes, but I will do my best. I think for some, the fact he didn't used to talk much was part of his appeal, so Bommy left more of an impact when he did talk. Him getting more lines was novel at first, but now it's kinda seen as whatever, not a big deal when he talks, as he does so all the time now. Additionally, BFDIA 12, where the voting took place, was released onto YouTube before Bommy got eliminated in Teapot 12, so it was likely a situation where people figured he still had Teapot, so voted him out in BFDIA. Ironically, that very reason is also most likely what cost him 2's power. It is likely a similar story for Golf Ball, who, as of this video, is still in Teapot, and was even first safe in the most recent episode, Teapot 13. The only difference is that Golf Ball got a little bit more dislikes than Bommy, so she got out. As for the other 2, Nickel most likely got significantly voted due to people not being all too fond of his way with words. Meanwhile, Fries was likely because of various actions he had taken across the season, including kidnapping Balmy and Needle and forcing them to dig for him. In pre-split BFB, most of the eliminations weren't close at all. The only episode you could even really count as a vote war was BFB 8, between 8-Ball and Golf Ball. She sure seems to show up in vote wars a lot, doesn't she? There was a 765 vote gap between them. This one is very easy to explain. These two had a rivalry in the first half of the season, where they were kind of competing to be the team leader. There was also the factor of it being the 8th episode, which was undoubtedly the main reason why 8-Ball specifically got out. Maybe it would have been Golf Ball or even Robot Flower if it wasn't the 8th episode. Now we have to skip all the way to post-split BFB, starting with BFB 19, in which Blocky and Spongy had a 771 vote difference. I know this doesn't look particularly close, but if I'm including BFB 8, then I also have to include this. We have another easy explanation here. Blocky wasn't really doing much of interest in the early days of post-split, and was probably only safe because of Spongy, who had just unfairly rejoined in the same episode he was already supposed to be eliminated before. At least Loser had been gone for a while before he returned in the same episode. And already we have another vote war immediately after the last, between Gelatin and Ruby. They had a 96 vote difference in terms of their saved votes. In BFB 19, Ruby not only personally burned one of X's aloe vera plants, albeit by accident, that also caused Woody to be burned alive as he landed on the burning aloe vera plant. She could also be perceived as annoying to some, a trait that also applied to Gelatin, which is the most likely reason he ended up down here. And now for probably the most infamous example of a vote war in series history. BFB 22, which was between everyone on the have-nots except for Woody. The difference between the highest and lowest of them was 180 votes. Look at those percentages going to 3 digits past the decimal. Unfortunately, the answer to why they were so close isn't all that interesting. Blocky, Fiery, and Taka were all responsible for making Woody angry, as they picked out a terrible gift for him. Flower didn't really do anything, and yet that's exactly the problem. It is crazy how she survived by 1 vote and then went on to win the whole season. Speaking of, the next vote war was another close scrape for Flower. It wasn't BFB 22 levels of close, but in BFB 24, she survived over Blocky by 318 votes. 6 more votes than she got total in the first elimination she ever survived all those years ago. Why these two? Fiery was still getting residual support from when him and Leafy made up during BFB 22, and this was still when Woody was at the height of his popularity as well. I can only imagine Woody and Blocky would have had to split votes as well due to their blossoming friendship. Flower was simply there since she was the reason her team lost. BFB 25 had a vote war between all 4 of the contestants up for elimination: Leafy, Woody, Teardrop, and Fiery. The difference between the highest and lowest of them was 538 votes. This is another vote war with a very simple explanation. All 4 of the contestants up for elimination this time were very popular at the time, but since one of them had to end up being the least, it was bound to be a tight one. Fiery specifically probably got out as a result of splitting with Leafy. BFB 25 was the last episode of BFB that even resembled a close match, so now we are on to Teapot. The first vote war in this season can be seen in Teapot 3, between Basketball, Eggy, and Foldy. The difference between them was 554 votes. This vote war was caused for the opposite reason as the later ones in post-split. These 3 weren't all that popular at the time, and still aren't in the case of Eggy and Foldy. It's probably coincidence that they were the ones arguing about who should lead the team near the end of the challenge. Teapot 4 is the first episode to have 2 cake at stake ceremonies at the same time. Only one team really had a vote war though. Team 8's, with everyone except for Pin being caught up in it. The difference between Coiny, the highest member of the vote war, and Saw, the lowest, was 163 votes. This vote war happened for essentially the same reason as many others both before and after this one. All of the contestants on this team are well liked, but it is not possible for all of them to stay in the game. Wouldn't you know it, Teapot 5's vote war against Tree, Lightning, and Fanny and Remote was caused by exactly the same thing, where all of them were well liked but one of them had the lead. This one was even closer than the last, just a 75 vote gap between Tree and Remote, and just 11 votes between Fanny and Remote. Teapot 6 is the first episode where both losing teams got into a vote war. First is the strongest team on Earth, which was between Belle, Basketball, and Eggy. They'd had a 155 vote gap between them. Belle wasn't in this team's last vote war because she had a large role in Teapot 2, which allowed her to be safe far earlier. As it turns out, her baseline is pretty far below that, though. Additionally, Basketball and Eggy still weren't all that popular, which is why they were here. Are You OK, on the other hand, is yet another instance of a team full of popular characters, which naturally leads to a vote war. Eraser, Tennis Ball, and Fries were the main residents of this one, with just 46 votes separating them. Teapot 7 is the first episode since Teapot 1 that has no vote wars, but Teapot 8 does have one between Bottle, Ice Cube, and Rocky. The first one the latter has been a part of since Season 1. 288 votes separate Bottle and Rocky. The explanation is simple again, I'm afraid, but it has less to do with popularity and more with the fact that Bottle and Ice Cube were actually relevant in the episode, while Rocky did literally nothing for the episode's whole duration. Both teams had vote wars in Teapot 9 again. I will start with Are You OK and keep their segment quick. That is because it is for literally the same exact reason as last time they lost, where everyone is very liked here. There is a 72 vote gap between Eraser and Puffball. Team 8's was the other team who lost, and everyone except for Donut and Gatey were in this vote war. There was a 79 vote gap between Barfbag and Coiny. This one once again occurred because everyone on this team is very liked, though it is more obvious that the Woe Bunch members are sharing votes here as they make up the bottom 3. On the flip side, Donut and Gatey have so much more than the rest. For Donut, it is probably pity votes as a result of Yellowface taking his arms away from him. Meanwhile, for Gatey, it's certainly because she keeps having one-on-one conversations with 2 that allow for further development for both. Teapot 10 was the first time since Teapot 3 where only one team was up for elimination. In it, Bommy was the only member of Just Not who was not a part of the vote war. Just 118 votes separated Price Tag and Nickel. Bommy was the one who got by far the most votes because he had a very cool moment in Teapot 9, deciding to go out on his own terms and taking out Pillow in the process. The rest were most likely close together due to all being quite liked. As of now, the last vote war occurred in Teapot 12, with the strongest team on Earth again. This time the vote war was between Belle and Robot Flower, who were separated by 113 votes. The most likely reason for this vote war is that Belle was the member of this team people cared the least for. Meanwhile, Robot Flower was actively hated because she had taken on the personality of specifically the Season 1 version of Flower for a while, due to a mistake on Basketball's part. One more thing before I conclude the video. What vote wars might occur in Teapot 14? For Death Pact again, I'm thinking Gady and Marker, and maybe also Tree could be in danger. For Team 2, it will most likely be Price Tag and Ice Cube, and potentially also Eraser, though I don't think he's that likely. Thank you for watching, make sure to subscribe with notifications on, and I'll see you in the next one.